but he is back in Nucifora for that gig. We'll get into David Nucifora when we get into one of the other papers.
But we'll get into it here because it's the lead on the back of the Irish Independent. Nucifora and Best placed Japan blame on Joe Schmidt. World Cup review shows that players were poorly prepared and suffered a skills deficit, I should say. So on the same day that IRFU's performance director David Nucifora was unsparing in delivering the findings of the review of Ireland's latest World Cup failure, Rory Best also offered a withering assessment of Joe Schmidt's final days as head coach. So is this our review? Is this our
is it over?
Is this our 2007 moment that the All Blacks had? That David Nucifora is our Steve Hansen, and it was more Graham Henry, was it?
Yeah. Well, they got a bunch of outsiders to come in and go, what did you do, and what did you do, and what was your role, and what did you do, and how did you do it? And so there's one outside person was involved. It was the same person from 4 years ago. And so I'm just going to give you the Irish Times take on this as well, because there's two pieces. Too much detail led to too much tension. That's the headline on Gavin Cummiskey's piece from the Rory Best press conference yesterday. And mounting anxiety a factor in Irish woes, Nucifora. This is Jerry Thornley's piece about the Nucifora briefing yesterday. So, go on, what were you going to say?
Well, there's a lot of different things here that we can pick up on, and so basically, David Nucifora has a 50 bullet point plan, it seems, or that's his assessment.
Do we know? Because we haven't seen it.
We haven't seen it. That's what I was going to say. So we've got a press briefing yesterday rather than actually the publication of this, but maybe there's loads of great secrets in it that we're not allowed to see and to give an advantage to other countries. The one thing I want to start with is this line in Rory O'Connor's piece. Nucifora said that coaches had taken the decision to try and get 10 to 15% more from the 2018 game plan rather than try to evolve their style of play to encompass more offloading and effective counter-attacking. Where in the name of God is any team at a high performance level going to get 10 to 15% more from an existing game plan after being the best team in the world? Well, I just really don't understand any sort of thought behind that they're sitting down and like, we have executed almost no perfect for an entire calendar year. What can we do? We can try and develop something new to complement this brilliant game plan, or we can try and make this near perfect thing 10 to 15% better. Well, that ain't going to happen.
Well, I suppose if you have, if you give away 4 penalties in a match, and in your next game you give away 3 penalties, you could say that that's a 25% or whatever your maths, however you're going to do it, 33% improvement on your performance. And maybe it's that type of stuff that they were thinking, like, execute even better than our near perfect execution. Like you can see how you can talk yourself into, oh, there was a knock on there, and there was one lost line out there. So if we go perfect in the lineouts, perfect in our scrums, find touch from all our penalties, miss tackles at a rate that's 25% better, then, you know, what's to lose? We're making better. We're layering on top of the already stuff.
And if we score more points than the All Blacks in a World Cup quarter-final, we'll be World Cup semi-finalists. All those things are through.
It's true.
What's realistic?
I don't know. It's a good point. I think that probably when you're stuck in the weeds of it, you're like, well, we could. They don't need to completely rip up the game plan. This whole notion that like everything they did in 2018 was so predictable that by the end of 2019 it was going to be worked out. It was like, do most of that stuff very well and add a little bit of something. Rory Best is talking about complacency in one of the pieces I read. I don't know if it was, might have been Kieran O'Rahilly's piece. He was saying that they did get a little bit complacent, that it's in Gavin Cummiskey's piece here as well. I think we believed what everyone was saying. You're very quick to say don't believe what they're saying when it's negative, but you're not as quick to say that when it's positive. We should have been more streetwise. Grand Slam, autumn, beating the All Blacks, swept the World Rugby Awards, and I think we went to Portugal. We slipped back to where we had been nearly even pre-Joe. So the training camp didn't go well. And he also says that, you know, this, I don't know if everybody is aware of the model of the week that the All Blacks come up with, where on Tuesday and Wednesday the coaches are doing all the talking, they're installing the game plan, and then the team takes over, and by the time the captain's run is over, the coaches stand back and the players look after it. That's the whole point of it. Ireland had adopted that model, but during the World Cup, Schmidt and the coaches, he says the coaches, so I don't want to, maybe it was just Joe, maybe it was all of them combined, had stepped back in and had started to take more responsibility and to talk more and to have more meetings. And so they had a meeting on the Friday morning before the All Blacks game, when normally the last meeting would have been at the very latest on Thursday night. So he's saying, you know, what's supposed to be less tension is already ratcheted up, because everybody's a little bit on it. And yeah, it looks like they went away from the stuff that made them great in the first place.
So this is the week of the All Blacks game. I don't think we've got clarity on whether or not Joe Schmidt was as controlling the week of the Japan game. Now, I've got a suspicion, like, we don't know what happened. Like, he talks about the defeat to Japan, and I don't know, he says that perhaps that there should be more changes and things like that, but he doesn't mention Joe Schmidt being too controlling. I wonder if Schmidt did hand over the control of that, of the week in the Japan game.
So it doesn't sound like that at all. It sounds like they didn't take the Japan game as seriously as possible. As a group, I suspect Schmidt took it seriously and couldn't communicate that to the players. But
I've clearly got a different view on this to you. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, well, Schmidt has obviously handed over the reins as normal, like the All Blacks do in the lead up to the Scotland game, in the lead up to the Japan game, and then the players didn't execute against Japan, and Schmidt might have been a little bit pissed off about that and was like, next time we're in a big game situation, I've got to wrestle back a little bit of control.
I think, sorry, to go back to the Complacency's piece here, the over too much control had started before the World Cup.
Okay.
So they had to step in after the game against Twickenham where we got hammered in August, 57-15. And after that game, the leadership group, which includes Best, Sexton and O'Mahony, approached head coach Joe Schmidt seeking increased player control 24 hours out from games. No more meetings, stop the information overload, players struggling to cope.
Okay, I didn't see that line. The pre-season training camp is, that took place before Twickenham, wasn't it? Or was that right before Twickenham? Because like we were all talking about the game in Twickenham saying, well, the training camp must have gone really well because they were all out on their feet. And actually, it was actually the more obvious answer. No, it just went really badly, and that's why they performed badly. And this is now going to live in a little bit of infamy when it comes to Ireland in big tournaments and their pre-season preparations.
Portugal is the new Saipan.
It kind of is. So, God, I don't know. Like between that and between the Chiba training camp where Robbie Henshaw gets injured, Rob Kearney gets injured.
Yeah, and they're complaining about the facilities there. Does that come up? Was that one of the points?
I haven't seen it in the papers today. Certainly not in the Irish Independent today, so I'm not sure was that brought up again yesterday, but I know Schmidt obviously brought it up.
My issue with this the whole way through has been that David Nucifora has been doing the review into the performance. He is in charge of the high performance department. It's his job. And Tony has a line about the book stopping with the coach, but actually the book stops with Nucifora because it's his department. He was the one who put on the record, our express job here is to go out and do something we had never done before, and let's get past the quarter-final. That was the point all along about, like, we've turned the quarter-final into this massive mountain that is unscalable by us mere pygmy Irish people, because we talk about that and nothing else. Maybe if we shifted the focus away from that to like trying to win it, or we're not here to just reach the quarterfinals, or like I don't know, but something else other than that. And he wasn't interviewed. They didn't ask him, what did you do? How did you do in your role? And he seemed a bit taken aback at the question. Just from here's what happens with Thornley in his piece. In the course of this review process, who reviewed Nucifora's performance, or interviewed him? No one interviewed me. Maybe they should have. That's not a bad idea. I'm sure they will at some point. We'll sit down and talk about, how the season went, how the block of time went. But no, my role is to look at this and be as objective and clear as I can as to how we went. I'm not great at judging my own performance. It's not a skill that I have. I mean, I'm always amazing, right? Is that not human nature?
Well, 100%. And
how can you be objective about yourself? Because you know the mistakes that you made, and you know the million different data points that went into every single decision. So how can you then go, oh, but look, I let them ride with that. I made that, something else was going on, and I got a bit distracted. Because everybody makes excuses for themselves in all facets of life.
Somebody needs to hold a mirror up to David Nucifora.
And to the RFU.
The RFU.
This is all, the book is stopping with Joe Schmidt and the players, and it's like, okay, fair enough, but they're saying don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is the line that's coming across. All our processes are perfect. Are they? Are they all perfect? Would Donncha Ryan not have been a better presence around that squad than John Klein, say? Is it not possible that we could find a way to allow some players to leave and come back? Not part of the conversation here. No decisions that we made were wrong about any of that stuff. It was exclusively down to a bad training camp, a bit of complacency. Our psychological support wasn't strong enough. Nothing to do with the IRFU.
Yeah.
Absolutely none of their fault. None of their decision making was wrong, according to the IRFU.
Yeah, it's but you can see also as well where Nucifora is where his words are coming from. If I'm in his position, I'm probably going to be similarly saying, well, everything I did, I thought I was doing pretty well. But that's not the vantage point with which you can judge yourself properly from. Somebody else literally has to do that. Like if Graham Henry can come in and analyse what's gone wrong at Leinster, because that's essentially what he did, unless I'm mistaken here. Like, is there not a figure like that that could be brought in to look at what the IRFU themselves have done? And it can just be a dialogue. It doesn't have to be a rubber-stamped, hard-hitting report. It can just be like, listen, we're opening the doors to you. You've executed at the very highest level. You've won World Cups. Can you come in and actually look at what we're doing on a top-down level? And let's just have a conversation about this, rather than saying, no, we're going to produce our own report and then we're exempt from any of the blame.
And the point is, no one's looking for a head and a platter here.
No.
It's actually just, the point that you make is it's a conversation. What could we have done better? Are our processes right? And if somebody from outside, I don't know, like, there's a million different people that you could use. So you could just use a management consultancy firm who come in and go, well, these are the other alternatives around the world that people are doing. These are the, if we've war-gamed out a bunch of different scenarios, and at the end of it, you always finish as a quarter-finalist. That's your level, lads. You're going to have to get used to it. Or once the draw was made, you were drawn against the two best teams, nothing you could have done. Once that draw was made, you were finished. Whatever. I don't believe any of that stuff, but whatever they come and say. With this bit about, like, oh yeah, I'm going to review my own performance and go, I was good, but I've got 50 points where we could do things better. You know, we have a skills deficit.
Mm. Just the
Connacht didn't have a skills deficit when Pat Lam was their coach, did they? Like, Leinster were the best passing team in Europe under Joe Schmidt. Mm. Like, Leinster don't have a skills deficit when they play with Stuart Lancaster and the game plan that himself and Leo Cullen put in place. Do we have a skills deficit then?
No, well, obviously not.
So, like, these are all fairly nebulous work-ons that will help us to improve, but it reeks a little bit of bullshit.
But the thing is, they're following up on the bullshit, if that's what you believe it to be, because he says Andy Farrell and his coaches are going to be going out helping top-level players develop their skills, as well as those players coming through the system. So this skills deficit is not just a notion that they've thrown out there. They actually fully believe in this, because Andy Farrell is going to go and work on this with senior players.
I mean, so maybe that means is that an implicit criticism of the way that we trained?
Perhaps.
That we didn't do enough work on skills? Again, you bear in mind that Leinster became the best passing team in Europe under Joe Schmidt. That was what their stated ambition was, and those players seemed to respond to that. So I don't know. It just feels like, I can't say it's a whitewash because we haven't seen it. Maybe the document is unbelievably hard-hitting that the Rugby Management Committee of the IRFU have got, that they're not making public. Mm. Why are they not making it public?
Like like you can kind of read, so I wasn't in the room yesterday for this, but you can kind of read between the lines as to what fingers are being pointed where. So just another section from Rory O'Connor's piece. There are 50 recommendations out of the process, and they will be kept in-house, but Nucifora's presentation was open and pointed. They will make uncomfortable reading for the coaching staff, the senior player group, and performance coach Enda McNulty, whose job it was to have the team mentally prepared. Kind of suggests, you know, his job was to have the team mentally prepared, as if Nucifora is very much saying that was your job and you failed in doing that job. Found that the team suffered from performance anxiety, unable to cope with the mantle of being the world's best team in the back of the stunning success in 2018. Again, perhaps pointing at the performance coach in that case. So there are many scapegoats wandering around the farm of David Nucifora at the moment.
Except himself. Except himself in his own report. And he admits that nobody interviewed him for this, and that his job, like, so bear in mind, he was Joe Schmidt's boss. Mm. Now, they were also mates. That's the other thing, like, they were, they'd worked together in the past. So a couple of the key points, I don't know if we've covered these. A disproportionate focus for preparation on the opening game in Pool A against Scotland at the expense of the second game against host Japan 6 days later. So essentially, they got the team selection for that wrong because they didn't appreciate the fact that Japan were going to be any good. Rory Best actually name checks Dave Kilcoyne and says, look, Kilcoyne should have started, you know, especially in that Japan game, that there would have been an injection of energy, there would have been a ripple effect from that. His own situation, he's like, I don't want to get the quote exactly wrong here, so where was the Kilcoyne piece?
The Kilcoyne piece, I don't want to get this quote wrong either.
He talks about essentially, you can't drop your captain because where does that leave you? Suggesting that maybe he needed not to play back-to-back 80 minutes and that they could have dropped him. But if they've dropped him, they're going to have to play Sexton. Like, so they got the selection for the Japan game wrong. They didn't focus on it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
He's on Ireland's defeat to Japan. I think as a player, you trust the coach, and that's what we do. I think we look and think, could we have finished the front five, freshened the front five in some shape or form? If you inject Dave Kilcoyne to start that game, was that ripple effect, the burst of energy that we needed? Someone coming in with the carrot of, you're playing in the big game. With me, it's a difficult one at 37, playing 80 minutes to 6 days later, turning around and playing again. But then if you do not play, you're captain. What does that say?
Yeah. Like, it would have been fine to rest your captain, I think, for that game if he wasn't our best hooker. Like, you know, was he undroppable because he was playing so well, or was he undroppable because nobody else was playing well enough to push him? They need to continue to develop player skills. The decision to stick with the tried and tested game plan that brought the Grand Slam. And then performance anxiety is obviously the point you were making. Certainly there is a subtext here that Enda McNulty probably won't be very happy with. To be able to manage the stress and expectation of performance, I really do believe it's an important area for us to look at and service better our staff to deal with. Anyway, the whole area of psychology has to be improved, as well as health and well-being. It's an area we do have to try and upgrade and upskill ourselves in. Like, you know, Irish Rugby, the best and most professional organisation, the amount of money that we spent on the preparation for it, and the amount of coaching staff, the amount of strength and conditioning staff they have, and they're saying that we're not that good at psychology and health and well-being. I mean, you know, these are fairly fundamental things. Again, that's all part of stuff that, like, he has to have rubber stamped. Josh Schmidt comes and says, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. And he's like, yeah. Or he's like, no, I think we should be doing this and this. That's his gig. But where's he being held to account in any of this?
Nowhere, it seems. He does also say that he's got full confidence in Andy Farrell leading things up from the start of next year. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, the YouTube commenters aren't happy. Move on from the rugby, lads, come on, move on.